بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سورة المائدة آية number 95. قال الله تعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقتلوا الصيد وأنتم حرم ومن قتله منكم متعمدا فجزاء مثل ما قتل من النعم يحكم به ذوى عدل منكم هديا بالغ الكعبة أو كفارة طعام مساكين أو عدل ذلك صياما ليذوق وبال أمره عفى الله عما سلف ومن عاد فينتقم الله منه والله عزيز ذو انتقام. This ayah carries on from the previous ayah, talking about not hunting game animals when you're in a state of ihram or when you are in the haram of Makkah. He calls out to the believers and he says, do not kill the sayd. So sayd are those wild animals which will not come under your possession except by hunting them, by firing an arrow, or nowadays using a gun. You can have game animals of the land and of the sea. It should be noted that the game animals of the sea are halal even in a state of ihram. So this ayah refers to the game animals of the land, even though it is not specifically mentioned here. So when he says do not kill game animals whilst you are hurum, this means muhrimun, you are in a state of ihram, and it can also mean when you are in the haram of Makkah, even if you're not in a state of ihram. Both of these apply. It is haram to hunt game animals in this state. So if you're in a state of ihram in your own country outside Makkah, it is still haram for you to hunt game animals, because this is one of the restrictions of the ihram. He says whoever kills the game animal muta'ammidan, meaning intentionally, which means to say there's no sin upon you if it was unintentional. For example, you were ignorant of the ruling, or maybe you just outright forgot you're in a state of ihram or you're in the haram of Makkah. It needs to be intentional, you know what you're doing. Then he says the jaza, the recompense of that, is that you have to slaughter an animal from the bahimatul an'am, meaning from the family of the camels, cows or sheep, which is similar in nature to the game animal you hunted. He says as judged by dhawa adlin minkum, two just people amongst you, because their opinion will be just. They're not going to try to take shortcuts and take the easy way around and find loopholes. They're going to have integrity to the law of Allah Jalla wa Ala. He says hadiyan, this means an offering, baligh al-Kaaba, meaning reaching the Kaaba, that is to say, the slaughtering and the distributing the meat to the poor people needs to be in the haram. Also the word Kaaba, coming from the root letters Kaaba, meaning to be raised, because this is the house which is raised. The Hurun Ain are described as وَكَوَاعِبَ أَتْرَابَ. Kawa'ib, plural of Ka'iba, meaning a woman with raised breasts, so they are not flat-chested. Ataraba meaning same age. Notice the word hadiyan mansub bil fatha because it is a hal of the dhamir bihi. But then he gives a second option, so you have a choice. You can either opt for the first option or this second option. He says, oh, kafaratun, or an expiation, ta'amu masakin, food for poor people, meaning feeding poor people. We talked about the word kafara before. The detail to this is that supposing if you had undertaken the first option, you would have to sacrifice a sheep, for example. If you do not want to do that, then you take the value of the sheep and you purchase food with it, and with this food you feed poor people. Now the exact quantity is not mentioned. Your ulama say 1 mud, and some others say it is 2 muds or half a sa'. Nowadays people do not work with mud and sa', so it would be sensible to say that with this price of the sheep, which you would have sacrificed in the first option, you purchase a regular sized meal, not something too cheap like peanuts, and not something too expensive like a £30 steak, but just something basic, something which would be regarded as a meal in the customs of where you're living, and then you purchase as many meals as you can with this price and give one meal to each poor person. So there's your second option. And then he says the third option, O, the harf O means you have a choice, this or that. عدل ذلك, adl meaning the level or the same amount of that. Siyaman, siyam is mansub al-fatha because it is a tamyiz. It tells you in which way you're equaling the feeding. So when he says siyaman in terms of fasting, meaning to say in the second option, if the number of people you had fed came to, let's say, 30, then you have to fast 30 days. So here are your three options. It's based on choice, whichever one you want to do, that is good enough because of the word aw. He says لِيَذُوقَ وَبَالَ أَمْرِهِ, so that he may taste, from ذَاقَ يَذُوقُ ذَوْقًا, to taste, وَبَال meaning the evil consequences or the bad consequences of his amr, of his matter, meaning what he has committed. He then says عَفَى اللَّهُ عَمَّا سَلَفَ, عَفَى يَعْفُ عَفْوًا, to forgive and overlook. Allah has forgiven or overlooked what has preceded. And this is because if you killed game animals in a state of ihram or in the haram before the ruling was revealed to you, then of course you cannot be taken into account, and Allah has forgiven and overlooked that. And he says وَمَنْ عَادَ, whoever returns, meaning commits this sin after the ruling has been made plain, فَيَنْتَقِمُ اللَّهُ مِنْهُ, then Allah will take revenge on him. He ends by saying that Allah is Aziz, meaning mighty and honorable and untouched with any blemish. Dhu intiqam, meaning the owner of revenge, as in he is able to take revenge on those who are worthy of it. Okay, let us reflect on ayah number 95. We take obviously that hunting the land game animals in the state of ihram or in the haram of Makkah is haram. Notice we say land game animals and not the fish, because the next ayah is going to explain to us that the sea creatures are halal to hunt, so you can go fishing even in the state of ihram. We may also take that not killing game animals of the haram or in the state of ihram is a sign of your iman. That is to say, if you leave it out for the sake of Allah. So for example, you are in a state of ihram, you see game animals and you're tempted to hunt them, but then you remember this ayah and you leave it for the sake of Allah Jalla wa Ala, then this will increase you in your iman and will reward you. Because when you leave out a sin for the sake of Allah, that is reward worthy. But if you leave out a sin simply because you lose interest and it is not for the sake of Allah, then this is neither reward worthy nor punishment worthy. It is just neutral. However, if you leave out a sin, not because you want to leave out a sin, but because you're attempting to commit the sin, but there is an external preventative factor which prevents you from committing the sin, then as long as you had the intention to commit the sin and you had the means to commit the sin, then it will be counted against you as if you physically committed that sin. For example, a person wants to go to the casino to gamble. He has the intention, he has the money and the means, but he goes to the casino and he finds it to be closed, so he has to turn back. So in the end, he did not gamble, but the sin is written against him fully, as if he gambled. Okay, what if a muhrim does intentionally hunt a game animal? Can this animal be eaten from its meat? The answer is no. We treat this animal like dead meat, which is of course haram for everybody, because Allah forbids hunting, and so if you do it, then its presence is like its absence. So we say that this hunted animal has not been killed through a halal means, which would be either a halal dhaka or halal hunting. So therefore we treat it like dead meat. Okay, what if a game animal is hunted for a muhrim? We say it's the same thing. If the game animal is hunted by someone else, not in the state of ihram, for a muhrim specifically, then this is not allowed to be eaten by the muhrim, although it can be eaten by someone else. On the other hand, if someone not in ihram hunts a game animal for himself and then decides to give it as a gift to the muhrim, then this is fine, it can be taken, because it was not done for the muhrim, and neither did the muhrim tell the muhil to hunt or give him a hint of sorts, because this is one of the ways that a muhrim could take a loophole around this law of not hunting the game animal. He could just tell somebody else to hunt for him. We also note the condition muta'ammidan. It must be on purpose, and this applies to all prohibitions in the ihram. They must be done on purpose for them to be sinful. And if we go by the opinion that you have to pay the fidya, then they must be done on purpose for the fidya to apply. If they are done by mistake or forgetfulness, then you're not sinful, and there's definitely no fidya. We also find that the haram area and the ihram of the muhrim, they are sacred, which means there are certain restrictions upon you, which otherwise would not apply. We also take the kafara, and this is a choice of 3 things. As for the bahimatul an'am, then we already have the Sahaba giving this judgment for many game animals. For example, killing the ostrich means you have to slaughter a camel, because an ostrich is a big animal and so is a camel. So any of the decisions made by the Sahaba must be followed, because they are more worthy to be followed than our own personal decisions. As for those animals for which the Sahaba have not made a decision, then we would require capable people to make the decision. And the best way to make the decision is that your decision should be by way of analogy with the decisions made by the Sahaba. So they are the yardstick for us. As for the detailed decisions of the Sahaba, then you can find this in books of fiqh. So to illustrate this matter with an example, if you kill an ostrich intentionally, then you have to do one of 3 things. Number 1, sacrifice a camel in the haram and feed the poor people there with the meat. If you do not wish to do that, then you can see what the value of the camel is, and you'll have to ask the people of experience on this. So supposing the camel is worth £500, you have to purchase an average meal with £500. Let us suppose a decent meal costs £5, so that makes 100 meals. And with these 100 meals, you have to feed 100 poor people, 1 for each meal. If you do not wish to carry out the second decision, then you may fast 100 days. That is 1 for each meal. Now typically the ulama talk about the mud, that you feed each poor person 1 mud, and some others will say 2 muds. The problem is many people do not go by this measurement anymore, so we can adapt it to our particular culture and customs. Now as for the feeding, one might ask, does it have to be 1 meal for every poor person? Or could you not just feed 1 poor person 100 meals? Well, the masakin is a plural, and the lowest plural is normally 3. So some ulama would say that you can get away by just feeding 3 poor people. So if you have 100 meals, you can distribute them amongst 3 poor people. That is understandable, but what appears to be more sensible is that you should distribute 100 meals, in our example, amongst 100 poor people, 1 each, because this way the benefit is going to be more widespread and far-reaching. And as we said before about the fasting, what appears to be the better opinion is that you do it in a row, just like the kafara for the accidental killing, which is in a row. So the mutlaq is carried on the muqayyad if the ruling is the same, which in this case it is. The ruling is fasting for a kafara in both cases. And then besides, it is always better to quickly discharge your obligation rather than delaying it. As Allah says, فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ, race to do goodness. It is also worth bearing in mind that if a person knows that hunting is haram but does not know of the kafara and he hunts, then the kafara still applies to him. He cannot say, oh, but I was ignorant of the punishment. What matters is that you should be ignorant of the ruling, not the punishment. We also take that Allah is forgiving, and He does not take people to account when they do not know the ruling. However, as He tells us that whoever commits this action after knowing the ruling that it is haram, then Allah will take revenge on him, meaning by imposing the kafara on him. And this will, of course, expiate his sins If he does not give the kafara, then his punishment is in the akhirah, and that is far worse than any kafara in this world. And we also take the name of Allah, Aziz, and also his description, Dhuntiqam, the one of revenge. It is not a name, it is a description. Although in your dua you can call upon Allah, Ya Dhuntiqam, O one who takes revenge. Ayah number 96. أحل لكم صيد البحر وطعامه متاعا لكم وللسيارة وحرم عليكم صيد البر ما دمتم حرما واتقوا الله الذي إليه تحشرون. He says أحل from أحل يحل إحلالا, to make halal. Made halal for you is the sayd, the game animals of the bahr, of the sea, and its ta'am, meaning its food, and this refers to its dead animals as explained by the Mufassirin. Mata'an, as a provision or as a benefit for you and for the sayyara, from sara yasiru sayran, to go or to travel. In modern day language, sayyara means a car that you drive. In this context though, it means the travelers who will take food from the sea. So this is to say, take provisions from the sea animals, all sorts of fish and so on. And he says, وَحُرِّمَ, made haram, alaykum, upon you, is the saydul bar. Bar means land. Ma dumtum, as long as you are, from dama yadumu, dawaman, meaning to be ongoing, as long as you are huruman, in the state of ihram, or in the haram sanctuary of Mecca. And he says, have taqwa of Allah, the one you will be, tuhsharun, gathered together to. From hashara yahshuru hashran, to gather together something. Now we notice something here. In this ayah 96, he talks about the game animal of the land being haram. In the previous ayah 95, he did the same thing, telling us not to hunt the game animals, and he gave us a kafara for that, the three options. And earlier on in the surah, he said, غَيْرَ مُحِلِّ الصَّيْدِ وَأَنْتُمْ حُرُمْ, that you're not allowed to hunt the sayd as long as you are hurum. So these are three ayat in which he forbids hunting the game animal of the land. And this emphasizes how haram it is to hunt the game animal of the land. One might ask, why? Why does he emphasize this so much? And the answer is that game animals are an attractive proposition. They take up your time and your attention. They will completely hog your attention away from the ibadah of Allah Jalla wa Ala. They are a massive distraction. This is why in this surah there are three ayat emphasizing how haram it is. One ayah would have been enough, but there are three. And that tells you what fitna the game animals are. So reflecting on ayah number 96, like we said, the main point is that fishing is halal even in the state of ihram and in the haram. And when we say fishing, we are talking about those animals which only live in the water, not amphibians. Amphibians take the ruling of land animals. We again find in this ayah that the game animals of the land are haram. As we said before, in this surah there are three places where he mentions this. And we said that this is because land game animals are a fitna. What about the game animals of the sea, fishing? This is less of a fitna and less of a distraction for the people, therefore it is allowed. So it's a lightening of the load. We also take the obligation of taqwa of Allah Jalla wa Ala. This is what the whole Quran is about. And we take that we are going to be gathered together to Him. So this is referring to Yawm al-Qiyamah, where everyone will be gathered together. We will not be isolated, everyone together. And so of course we need to prepare for that day. And there's only one way to prepare, and this is by way of taqwa. Ayah number 97. جعل الله الكعبة البيت الحرام قياما للناس والشهر الحرام والهدي والقلائد ذلك لتعلموا أن الله يعلم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وأن الله بكل شيء عليم. Now qiyaman means something to keep you safe and secure, and also something for your benefit. to keep you upright in life. So what it refers to here is that the Kaaba, which is Al-Bayt al-Haram, the sacred house, and also this refers to its surrounding area as well, so the Haram area, is a means of security, safety and benefit for you. All of this comes under the umbrella of Qiyaman Linnas. So people come there to trade, and you can profit much because many people gather together in this area, which means you will have many customers. It also can mean that this is a place of safety for the people. You cannot kill anyone in here, even if they are worthy of it, if they come from outside to the Haram seeking protection. It is also said that it means that when the Kaaba will be destroyed, the people will end because it will be Yawm al-Qiyamah. And all of these meanings are correct because they do not contradict and they can coexist. And he says, وَالشَّهْرَ الْحَرَامِ, and the sacred month. So he has also made the sacred month as a qiyaman linnas, as a means of security for the people, because fighting is prohibited. Even in the Jahiliyyah days, they would respect the sacred months. وَالْهَدْيَةِ, and the offerings made to Allah Jalla wa Ala in the Haram. The Prophet ﷺ made 100 animal offerings. He slaughtered 63 of those animals, and the rest Ali radiallahu an finished off. So these are extra animals that you sacrifice in the Haram to Allah Jalla wa Ala and give its meat to the poor of the Haram. وَالْقَلَائِدَ, qilada is a necklace, so qala'id are these necklaces or these garlands that you would put around the animals, and this is to show that these animals are being brought to the Kaaba from outside to be slaughtered there and their meat to be given to the poor of the Haram, and therefore you are to leave these animals alone and not to take them or kill them yourselves. So when Allah Jalla wa Ala says that these animals are sacred, you're not allowed to kill them, this is a benefit for the people. Notice the word haram, al-Bayt al-Haram, meaning sacred, because it is forbidden to hunt game animals and it is forbidden to cut off the naturally growing plantation of that area. It is also forbidden to pick up lost property dropped in that area, unless you're going to announce it forever on. He says all of this is so that you may know that Allah knows all that which is in the heavens and in the earth, and that Allah is knowledgeable of all things. So what does that mean? It means to say that if you know that Allah has made these certain things haram for you, and it is for your benefit and for your security, then this indicates to you that the one who has legislated these beneficial laws has to be the one who knows all that which is in the heavens and the earth and has all knowledge, because only the one who has all knowledge will know which rules and regulations benefit you and which rules harm you. An ignorant person cannot possibly legislate rules which will benefit you and will keep you safe and secure. So reflecting on ayah 97, we take that Allah Jalla wa Ala chooses which places are going to be sacred. He has made the Kaaba and the surrounding area of the Haram sacred. Why that place? This is for Allah Jalla wa Ala alone to decide, in accordance with His wisdom. And what He makes sacred, we have to deem as sacred, because this is all in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We also find that He makes certain times more sacred than others, such as the 4 sacred months, 3 of them, the months of Hajj, Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, and then the 4th one, separate to the other 3, Rajab. Committing sins in these months is worse than committing sins in other months because of their sanctity. But what about fighting in these months? The majority of scholars say that to fight the kuffar even in the sacred months and initiating the fighting is halal because of the order to fight the kuffar. And so the ruling prohibiting the fighting is abrogated. But the weightier view, one in accordance with the text, is that fighting in this month, or at least initiating the fight in this month, of course you can retaliate if they start the fight, but for you to initiate the fight in this month against the kuffar is still haram, and that the ruling is muhkam, meaning it is not abrogated, because there is simply no reason for us to abrogate this ruling. And we say yes, the ruling to fight the kuffar applies, but we have an exception to the generality. And like this, we do not need to make any naskh or abrogation. Because if we can take both evidence and work with them together, then this is more worthy to be done. And Allah knows best. Notice upon the weightier opinion, if the fight started in, say, Ramadan, and it continued on into Shawwal, which is a sacred month, then this is permissible, because the initiation was in Ramadan, which is not from the sacred months. As of course did happen with the conquest of Mecca, where the Prophet went on to fight the Battle of Hunayn, and that spilled over into the sacred months. Also, we find that the animals which are taken to the haram to be sacrificed and the meat given to the poor, these animals are sacred. They must not be violated or hunted or killed. You can take these animals during the Hajj or the Umrah. It can even be done without the Hajj and the Umrah, just an extra optional animal that you take to the haram to be slaughtered and the meat given to the poor of the haram. This animal is sacred. Also the qala'id, this refers to those animals which are wearing a necklace to denote the fact that they are being taken to the haram, and so no one is allowed to touch them. We also take that these rulings are based on wisdom, because he says لِتَعْلَمُوا, so that you may know. So it's based on wisdom. We also take that in this ayah, it encourages us to learn about the descriptions of Allah Jalla wa Ala, who He is and His attributes and so on. Because He says, so that you may know that Allah knows everything in the heavens and the earth. So this is from His description, that He knows all things. And likewise, He has other descriptions. We need to know of these descriptions. Ayah 98. اعلموا أن الله شديد العقاب وأن الله غفور رحيم. He says, know that Allah is severe in torment, and that Allah is Ghafoor, the forgiving, and Rahim, the merciful. What has this ayah got to do with the ayat which have preceded? Well, the ayat which have preceded have laid down rules, regulations, and restrictions. Now, there's no point in laying down rules, regulations, and restrictions if there are no consequences for obedience and disobedience. This is why He says that He is severe in torment against those people who infringe and violate the laws, and that He is Ghafoor and Rahim on those people who are obedient to Him. Reflecting on ayah 98, the main lesson is, just as we found in the previous ayah, you need to know of the descriptions of Allah Jalla wa Ala, because He gives you an order, i'lamu, know that Allah is severe in torment and that He is the forgiving, the merciful. And we also take that Allah Jalla wa Ala is just, because He punishes those who deserve punishment and He forgives those who deserve forgiveness. Allah Jalla wa Ala does not go to extremes on either end, and this is due to His perfect justice and balance. As the Muslim also is required to be balanced in all aspects of life. Ayah 99. ما على الرسول إلا البلاغ والله يعلم ما تبدون وما تكتمون. He says, on the messenger, meaning Muhammad ﷺ, there is no obligation except the balagh, meaning conveying the message. And Allah knows what you tubduna, from abda yubdi ibda'an, to do something outwardly or to show outwardly, and that which you taktumun, meaning conceal, from katama yaktumu kitmanan. Reflecting on ayah 99, we take that conveying the message is obligatory upon the messenger, and that's the only obligation. He is not required to convince anyone. And it's the same thing with all the people giving da'wah. Your obligation is to convey the message, not to convince. Except that if you fear that people are going to misunderstand what you're saying, then it is better not to convey that particular message. But the default position is you always convey whatever knowledge you have. We also take that Allah has full knowledge of what you do openly and secretly. Of course, righteous actions done secretly are better because they are closer to ikhlas. But if in doing your righteous actions openly, so that others can see you, there will be a greater benefit. For example, they may learn or they may take inspiration from you, then that is in that case better. Otherwise, with sinful actions, this ayah tells us that you cannot hide anything from Allah Jalla wa Ala, and therefore this ayah is a threat to the sinful people. هذا والله أعلم.